Jem Spezzano, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. It's really great to see you again. I guess it's almost a year since we first met in Galway.
Yeah, time flies,
It's
especially
incredible.
when you're in quarantine.
Yeah, we're in a very different environment right now. So I'm
Yeah.
in Dublin in Ireland. But
Mhm.
tell us, where are you right now?
I'm in Los Angeles.
Amazing. And you're originally from Hawaii?
I'm originally from Hawaii, but I've been out here about 13 years.
Wow.
I've also lived a little bit in Paris off and on, and travel whenever I can, which also is something you're not allowed to do right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a very difficult time, and especially for creatives, because we kind of, I guess, a lot of our energy comes from being out and about and taking photographs. So tell us, how's it been for you recently?
Life is different because I can't work. I have a childcare job along with the travel photography and art that I do. I feel very blessed that I can do creative things while I'm stuck at home. I'm hoping that after we're set free, I'll have something to show for it. So even if it's not travel photography, I'm hoping to have produced some furniture pieces that I've refurbished. I'm working on some art right now, which is really nice. So for me, it's an interesting experience because right when this quarantine started, people were saying, okay, now's the time for you to write that novel, be so thankful for this time. You have to make something of this quarantine. And then there is a big resistance to that saying, you don't have to do anything right now. You can do what works for you. And I'm so in that boat because if we put this pressure on ourselves to produce something, then the pressure itself feels like a block to me. So I think it's completely fine if you need days in bed. There's a lot of feelings to process. I mean, this is most of our first pandemic. And so there's a lot of feelings, and there's a lot of feelings happening in the world. And I think it's important to process those feelings first and foremost. That being said, once you feel like you're in a better spot, I think being able to do certain self-care in your everyday life during quarantine makes the biggest difference. At first, I felt really blocked for anything creative.
And Jem, sorry to interrupt you, but just to better understand, what are the restrictions like in LA right now?
So right now, they issued a mandate of don't go outside unless it's absolutely necessary or unless you're going for a walk, getting exercise. But even still, you need to practice social distancing. They closed down the parking lots to the beaches and the hikes because they were overwhelmed with people. Restaurants are open, but only for takeout and delivery.
There's been some protests at Huntington Beach, I gather, that some locals feel that this is some kind of an economic conspiracy. That must be very disorientating as well.
Yeah. It is because you want people to be safe. And, I'm not trying to step on anyone's toes on what they believe. But I also feel that if it's possible to help people by not going outside, it's important for us to try. It's important to try during this time.
And back to your point that you felt blocked. So how is this quarantine really impacting on your day-to-day life and on your creativity? Is creativity something that you program, or is creativity something that you perhaps create by putting yourself into opportunities to be creative? Or do you have a particular, I guess, thought process or modus operandi around creativity?
Yeah, if I try force myself to be creative or schedule it, it's not going to happen. So for me, the best way to produce inspiration and creativity is if I practice certain self-care. And for me, being outside as much as possible is a big part of that. I know not everyone is lucky enough to have an outdoor space right now, or even nature to go to be in. So I feel like the best possible scenario then is hanging out by your window, like being able to see outside, like soaking in that vitamin D. I feel like that is so important right now. And they say that vitamin D could be helpful in, staying healthy right now and fighting the virus. And so I think sunshine, vitamin D, outdoors, fresh air is so important. Another thing I think would be really important for people would be to practice gratitude. It's like, what can we be thankful for during these times? I've never done this before, but recently I started a gratitude journal, like every morning. So I just passed my 30-day point, and I've noticed that my thought processing is different. Before, it was very quick to negativity, and now it's a bit slower. And when the negativity does come up, then I notice it more. And once I notice it, then I can round it off by thinking, well, at least this, I'm thankful for this. And I'm sure so many people could say, what are you saying? You have to be thankful during a pandemic? Like, what are you talking about? But it's not like you have to be thankful for this situation, but you can be thankful that you have a roof over your head. You can be thankful for the people that are still healthy in your life. You can be thankful for the time you had with the people before this happened. We can be thankful for technology, for being able to stay in touch with our friends.
Like right now, this is incredible as well. We can have a conversation like this. We couldn't have done this maybe 5 or certainly not 10 years ago.
I know, and I haven't seen you for a year, and I'm seeing you now. It's amazing.
Incredible. I'm very grateful for that, for sure.
Yeah, me too. So I found that was something really important for me, and that may not be for everyone, but I think if you find something to create a positive mindset for yourself starting every morning, that could really help people be in a mood of creative flow, can help with emotions. Whenever I'm depressed or unhappy, like, I'm not going to be in creative flow at all. Like, I want to be in bed. I want to just watch Netflix and not think about anything. So that's really helped me.
There's a great life lesson in there as well, that even beyond this pandemic, it's important that we all figure out what it takes to give us that energy to get up in the morning, so that we have some kind of a baseline. So when tragedy or struggles do hit us, that we have some kind of roadmap to perhaps get us through. I'm sorry I've interrupted you, but I just wanted to reflect on your learnings. It's really, really awesome.
It's like, I don't know if I should just continue and list all of the things that helped me, and hopefully.
Well, what's the next biggest thing on the list that's been helping you? And we might also turn to some of your work, because some of the photos that you create are absolutely amazing. And
thank you.
I presume that you've been sharing a little bit from your archive. So it would be really interesting to talk about your work as well, and your stage experience. You have so many amazing stories to tell, but yeah, absolutely. I'd love to hear what's the next biggest thing on your list to keeping you sane at the moment, because I think we're all in need of such good advice right now, especially.
Well, I find that it's important to try pamper ourselves a little bit, and that can be different for everyone. Feeling a little luxurious during this time, I think, helps. I'm not saying go out and buy something, but like use the nice, silverware, or like use your nice pajamas, break out the soft bed sheets, take a bath, use your nice tea. I find if I like use my lovely tea, if I just even having my little LED lights on all the time feels nice, because I always turn them off. I'm always like, oh no, I'm going to save the battery. And it's important to have batteries, but just having them on often raises my mood. It can be as simple as putting on your cologne every day. So if you can like treat yourself in some little way every day, I feel like that's really special, and that makes a big difference. So that itself, those little things can help me do some of my work from home.
That's really awesome. It's funny, you reminded me of my grandmother, that she came from an era where people were very conscious of money and of costs, but at the same time they'd go to a lot of trouble if somebody came around, that they'd use a white linen tablecloth and they'd use like a silver service to make tea. And it's funny how that type of ceremony, if you will, has been largely lost in Western culture, although the tea ceremony is still pretty important in Eastern culture. But that's kind of like a total tangent. But from a very practical point of view, to share that the importance of just being in the now, acknowledging the present, is also a very important function of what you've described, that rather than saying, oh, tomorrow, it'll get better tomorrow, or something else will happen tomorrow, just be present and just try and be kind to each other in the present.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That's really awesome. And tell us a little bit about your creativity, because the context, I guess, that we first met was in the context of moving from larger cameras down to the iPhone and being creative with the iPhone. So tell us a little bit maybe about your own creative journey.
So we met under the context of, digital photography and expression, mobile journalism. And for me, during this time, I haven't focused on that as much. I feel very fortunate that I had a large archive of photographs that I can post currently on my Facebook and Instagram. When I do go out on walks, that is something that I have to do the whole time because I haven't been able to do it. So I'm taking a photo of almost every single flower that I come across, just because I've been missing that. Usually I'm like traveling around the world, being able to take beautiful photographs. And so, it's gotten, I have a smaller radius of things I can photograph now. But I feel very fortunate that, I've had these past experiences, and that makes me really excited for future travels, because, this isn't going to last forever. There's sunny skies in the future. And so I know that's waiting for me. One of the positives of having more time at home is that I can focus on my furniture refurbishing business that I've been too busy to do for a long time. So I have a little online Etsy shop, and I have my furniture pieces that I've refurbished. It's called Peace and Poetry. And I'm hoping that, after this is done, I'll have finished a few pieces, hopefully be able to sell some pieces to make up money, since I'm not able to work right now like many people. So I'm loving that aspect of it. I obviously haven't been acting in anything during this quarantine, but I love that so many people are creating their own content. I feel like these funny videos and memes and everything are getting me through my day. So I really applaud everyone that's still doing that right now. I was doing a lot of voiceover work before this happened. And I love that. And I hope to get back into that when this is over. I don't have an at-home setup for that. But I think that kind of work for people is a beautiful thing. They can do that from home. They can be creating their repertoire of voice content right now, which is wonderful.
There's a lot of kind of tips and tricks as well you can employ. Like I've heard of voice actors and using little spaces under the stairs where there's sometimes like a little broom cupboard, and using a duvet to dampen sound, like kind of cuddling in under the duvet and doing the sound recording.
That's great.
Yeah, it's amazing with this technology as well. Like right now you aren't even using a microphone, and I'm just using the earbuds here because I'm using my phone, and the iPad has such a great speaker built into it that we don't necessarily need to spend a lot of money on equipment. So if it is something as well that somebody is maybe thinking of doing, there's nothing to stop somebody like Patrick Stewart, aka Jean-Luc Picard. Apparently he's reciting a Shakespeare sonnet a day. I think that's a really nice thing that he's doing, isn't it? It's great. Yeah, and he's doing his jigsaws apparently. But the idea of, practicing, he's got such a great voice. And of course, the way, I guess, that, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but sometimes watching television today, it can be difficult to hear what people are saying. And I think the reason why the likes of Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart are so clear and audible is because they started training in the theatre, and they started with Shakespeare, a lot of Shakespeare plays. But that's a slight tangent. But back to you and your own TV work. I think something that perhaps a lot of people be familiar with, you were on Hawaiian Five-O. Is that correct?
Magnum PI.
It was Magnum PI. Oh, that's even better.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I knew there was a Hawaii connection. Oh, that's incredible.
I was on an episode of that, which was so much fun to film in my home island, and everyone on that set was filled with so much aloha, and
amazing.
I loved it.
And amazing. How did you get that role? Is that part of ongoing work or?
Mm-hmm. Well, the casting director remembered me from an audition, a couple auditions I had sent in before, and so she had thought about me for this part. She sent me the audition notice, and I sent in a tape since I wasn't in Hawaii to audition for it, and got the part a few days later, and yeah, it was a dream come true.
That's amazing. And what kind of advice would you have for other people, especially at the moment and in the context of that Patrick Stewart story? Maybe this is a great opportunity to put together something. Now, absolutely, by bearing in mind your really stellar feedback and advice that we shouldn't feel under pressure to be creative and to have results. But if we do feel that we have the energy and the time, and we did want to work on something like perhaps putting together a demo tape, what kind of advice would you have for people?
My advice would be to work on it a little bit every day. Have something that you're looking forward to. If you're looking forward to recording something every day, do that. If you have the setups at home, it's like utilize that. Like so many people would be envious to do that. And
you mean like a backdrop, or you mean the equipment, or?
The equipment. If you have just even your iPhone, it's like you have so much equipment already. If you have special sound setup, as you know, right now, we're not needing that. I know so many actor friends of mine have just recorded using their iPhone and made amazing work from that. And so if that makes you happy, like, you should absolutely do that. And it's the reason I say, like, every day do something if you love it. I'm saying that because you feel accomplished then. It's like every day I have a goal of doing my Duolingo French lesson, and
Ouais,
just
absolument, c'est super
accomplishing.
ça.
Ah oui, très bien. And so, like, once I complete that one little thing, then I feel like, oh, I've done my duty of the day. So if you can incorporate something you love, like filming or art or monologues or music, so many artists right now are doing live performances. It's like if you can work toward a goal every day or even every week, I think that has a huge positive impact.
That's awesome. And I'm really curious to delve into, going back to Magnum PI, what kind of auditions or what kind of advices would you have? Typically for these sorts of shows, are people looking for the talent, the actor, the actress, to come up with their own ideas and send something in speculatively, or are they looking for something that's very much prepared and curated to the particular show that they're going for?
These projects are well-oiled machines. So these shows, they're big. They know exactly what they want, and so they send out these auditions, the lines that they want to see, because they're so professional and have to be so quick with finding the talent. So usually you have to get the audition and prepare the audition.
Okay.
At the same time, if you can add a creative aspect to it that's your own, that makes you stand out from everyone else, whether it be a button on the end of the scene that's funny, so you're not actually changing their lines that they want to see, but you're adding flair, I think that really helps, because they see hundreds of actors mostly saying the lines very similarly. So stand out as much as possible that actually works for the scene and makes sense.
That's absolutely awesome. It sounds like absolutely sage advice. And how do people typically access those opportunities? Would it be via an agent, or are these?
Usually it's through an agent. Some smaller parts are available through Actors Access, LA Casting. You can sometimes start submitting to the casting director themselves. You can send in headshots. You can digitally send in your reel. Keep in mind, though, they get sent material often, constantly. So don't be offended if you don't hear anything back. One thing I learned years ago when I was acting full time was, if you keep sending that stuff in, not harassing, but keep sending it in, at a certain point, these people are going to be like, oh, I've seen their face before. They must be working a lot in shows. So it's good to stay current. It's good to, remind people you're still here, because there's so many people out there. It's only understandable that they won't remember one actor from years ago. So stay current, be proactive about it, get your work out there, remind people who you are and what talent you have.
That's really awesome. And it's funny you remind me that I've been very lucky with some film stuff over the years from a very young age. But I recently was involved with Vikings as a bodyguard. And,
cool.
With your point about the same lines, it's funny, you think you're unique until you turn up and you realize that you've been cast. It's like people have found your clothes, your long lost brothers and sisters. There's a script in there somewhere.
Yeah, for sure.
Tell us, what's next when we get out of this lockdown? What are you most looking forward to doing, and what do you most have to do?
Well, I had some travel plans at the end of summer, in September and end of August. So fingers crossed that's possible. We'll see. If, those plans are canceled, it's understandable. And I would just love to travel as soon as possible when it's safe to do so. It's going to be really interesting to see after this how many people are going to be like, woo, I'm free, like, let me out of here. And how many people are going to be like, ooh, like, is it safe to go out? So I'm kind of curious to see how people handle this. And I've seen some hilarious videos and memes of people forgetting how to be in public after this. We're not going to be used to it.
You have to start putting on clothes and shaving and things like this again.
Jeans? I have to wear jeans again? Oh no. So it's going to be interesting, and I feel like everyone's going to be a bit different. For me, I'd love to travel. It seems like we will be wearing masks longer.
So in California right now, are masks mandatory, for example?
Mm-hmm. Anytime you're outside now, you're supposed to wear a mask.
Okay.
I think that's a good, a good rule to go by.
This virus, I guess, in a way, it's teaching us all how to up our personal hygiene game.
Yeah. And I think that's important because, it's not the first pandemic and it's not going to be the last pandemic. But how well we're prepared for the next one is what's important. And I think if we're used to this protection of ourselves and others, then it'll be everything's going to be a bit easier next time around. I have actually worn masks before this scenario on flights. I have always been a bit of a germaphobe, and I would always get sick when I traveled, when I flew on an airplane, like no matter what. And so there'd be so many times where I'd be flying to go to a conference and I'd have to speak at the conference. I'm like, I do not want to get sick. Like, I can't. So I started wearing the surgical masks on the airplanes. A lot of the times I'd be the only person wearing them, and people would be looking at me, and I would just say, I'm not sick, but I'm trying not to get sick. And they actually say that it doesn't really protect you from getting sick, but spreading germs if you are sick. But for some reason, whether it be like a placebo effect, I never got sick. Like, whenever I wear that mask, and maybe it's the humidity that's like protecting me from like drying out my sinuses on an airplane, but I never get sick when I wear a mask. And I was utilizing that even before this. So it may be really good for people to start doing that more often.
That's an incredible insight, and I can certainly share a similar story from a friend of mine who's a medic, and he started to wear a mask and people were laughing at him, and suddenly some of his colleagues got sick. So nobody's laughing anymore. There's an awful lot to be said for looking after our own personal well-being. And I think to reflect on where we started, I think that you shared something today. Well, actually, you shared a load of things today that are really interesting. But one of the things is the importance of looking after ourselves, because it can be very easy to feel like, oh, we're being selfish. But in fact, if we can look after ourselves, we're going to be much better equipped to look after other people. And in the current situation, we're learning that if we can look after ourselves by stopping the spread of the infection, or the net effect of us looking after ourselves is that it's in our power. In Ireland, there's a great slogan: it's in our hands. So I think that's a really, really great bit of advice. Thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like we're so lucky right now that our call to action is staying home, is to take care of ourselves, because that in turn is going to take care of other people. So we are very fortunate that that's what we're being called to do right now. It could be a lot harder.
It's very true.
Yeah, I won't even say what it could be, but I feel very lucky and some memes express it perfectly of, like before pandemic, sleeping in on the couch, watching Netflix all day, so lazy. Oh my goodness. And now it's hero, taking care of other people. Yes, and it's like, yeah, like we're so lucky that we should do this with pride.
It's a great opportunity to take a bit of a chance to reflect and to take stock as well, because life moves at such a fast pace. And before we know it, we're going to be back into probably back into the high speed grind again. So we should give ourselves that opportunity. Jem, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. It's so great to see you again, and I really appreciate talking, and it's been wonderful.
Awesome. And I'm going to link below. I didn't even know you were making furniture. That's so great. I love a bit of furniture making, so I'm excited to see your designs.
Yeah, I'll give you that link. I'll link my Instagram as well if anyone wants to be in touch and let me know what you do for self-care during this time. I'm open to trying new things and learning. That's one of the best things about this is there's a lot more time for learning. So yeah, I'd appreciate that.
Awesome. Thanks again. It's been an absolute pleasure, Jem.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.